Great. So welcome to the NYU Stern Executive MBA student panel. Thank you for joining us. We're thrilled to have some of our current DC students with us and excited for them to share their program experience. In the audience, we have people at various stages of their MBA exploration. So all the way from prospective candidates to admitted and enrolled students. As I mentioned, just a housekeeping item, the session is being recorded and following the moderated panel. So we're going to kick off. I will cover some questions with the panelists. We'll open it up. There were some questions submitted in advance. You can also use the Q&A feature to ask questions during the session. And we'll try to get to as many questions as possible, but to be respectful of our panelists and attendees' time, we're going to keep the session at an hour. We're going to focus tonight on the student experience. So if you have questions about your candidacy or application process or specific application or financial aid, I would encourage you to reach out to our team directly to learn more. Just to quickly introduce myself, my name is Heather McDaniel. I've worked with the Executive MBA admissions team for a little over 5 years. I do events such as this. I conduct applicant interviews, and the part of my job that I enjoy most is getting to work with candidates on the journey to higher education, as well as getting to host events like this that get to connect our current students with prospects. So it's a pleasure to be with all of you tonight. Without further ado, I know everyone here is joining really to hear from our panelists and the current students. So I'd like to go ahead and kick off there, have them introduce themselves. So if we could do just a round of kickoff with your name, your class year, and what it is you do. And we can start with Tom.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining. My name is Tom Huntley, currently the Vice President of Government Relations with Regent Craft, which is a battery-powered marine transportation solution company. I'm in DC 24, and my career brought me here through a public policy background, both with active duty in the Coast Guard and formal education with a master's in public policy. It's good to see everybody.
Great. Go ahead, Shanice.
Hi, everybody. I'm Shanice Steph. Am I unfrozen? Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Shanice Steph. I am in the DC cohort, DC 25. And I currently work as the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Culture Manager for Remy Cointreau. So I work in the alcohol spirits industry.
Great. And so now?
All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to this webinar. My name is Sanel. Last name is Patel. My title is the Senior VP of Engineering. I work for a company called Ozone Solutions. My background is in chemical engineering. And the reason why I was brought to NYU is just the advancement in career opportunities. So that was the main reason why I looked into NYU. And I'm DC 25, like Shanice.
Great. Yes, and for those joining us, we designate classes based on their graduating year. So DC 24, those would be the students graduating from the DC program in 2024, DC 25, similarly graduating in 2025. So hope to have many DC 26 and DC 27 students among us. Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. So elaborating a little bit, but you all kind of touched on pursuing an executive MBA, but why did you decide an executive MBA program was right for you? And so now we'll kick it off to you because you had kind of started touching on this to begin with.
Yeah, so a lot of times when you look into an MBA program, you're solely focused into just learning material. But with the EMBA or the executive MBA program, it's more of applying right away. You're basically taking your coursework and integrating it into your work almost immediately, trying to improve the company's scope. So that's why I looked into the executive program over just the MBA program. And the great thing with NYU is there's a DC location, and it's in a kind of a perfect location for most of the students that are coming in.
Great. Shanice, what about you?
Yeah, so I am actually a New Yorker who commutes into the DC area. But one of the reasons why I chose the DC program was because of the format. I chose an executive MBA versus a regular MBA. I went through a bit of a journey. So I had started thinking about doing the MBA program about 5 years ago and, kind of put it on hold. And then 2 years ago, I did the Forte Fellowship. And I saw that NYU was one of the schools. And when I looked at the regular program versus an executive MBA, I wanted to stay in the workforce. And so I found that this program gave me the best of both worlds, that I would be able to learn on the spot and take the things that I learned actually into my day to day. And also like get a chance to see DC.
And Tom, what about you?
Yeah, so agree with all of the above, and those were all part of my my decision matrix. I want to touch on the value, particularly in the DC area, of an MBA. So my last 2 years of active duty were actually detailed to the House Appropriations Committee, and so I was a staffer on the Hill. And there are government and policy people, and there's industry, and the two don't speak the same language. And so for me, it was the ability to learn essentially a new language, to learn the language of industry, and be able to, at the time when I started the program, when I was on the Hill, apply that understanding as we spoke to industry liaisons, industry leaders. And now I'm on the other side in the private sector, and I can navigate government because I understand the DC area. And so it's the perfect mesh. And what has been incredibly powerful is the network within my cohort, because many of them come from government backgrounds, but we're learning business dynamics and drivers and cost analysis. And so we can meld those two worlds together here in Washington, D.C. It's incredibly powerful.
That's wonderful and very helpful to hear from all of you, your motivations for the Executive MBA program. So Tom, you started touching on this a bit, but the cohort model is very important. And as we on admissions look to build a cohort, we're really looking for people that bring in diverse perspective, really unique backgrounds, and that nets out usually around a cohort size of about 40 to 55 students. So I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about your cohort.
Certainly. I'll start it off by saying lifelong friends, which is pretty amazing. Not probably with every single person because the cohorts are large, but to go through a program like this together with a group of people who are hungry for learning, who are at a point in their careers where they bring experiences that are different than mine, bring ideas that are different than mine, and we can talk about them in class, but because of the concentrated nature of the weekends, we'll go out to dinner and continue the conversations there, or meet up on a class assignment over Zoom. But then the conversation continues, and it's I would compare it interestingly to as I mentioned at the top. I did a full year mid-career grad school program. I'm closer with this cohort here at NYU than I am with a full year program. And that was something that I really wanted to explore when I was looking at EMBA programs versus kind of more traditional MBA programs. And it's this concentrated nature of the weekends where you all come together, you're all in class together, and you really get to share this experience together. And so it's been phenomenal, and I highly recommend it.
That's great. And Shanice and Sanal, I know you two are part of the same cohort. So I'd love to dive a little bit deeper into an aspect of the cohort. So you're in study groups. And like I said, we're bringing in people from all different industries and backgrounds. So I'd love to learn about your study groups, each of your study groups. Can you tell us a little bit about what that experience is like?
Sure. I can talk a bit about mine. I would say our cohort is special in that, like, I feel like sometimes we're a large study group of our own, but we also have these like smaller groups. And what I enjoy about the study groups, we get those during like our first week together when we spent that time in our intensive, um, just learning about each other. At that time, we also had a diversity class, so that helped us like dive deeper in our smaller groups and really get to know each other and talk across lines of difference. My group, we tend to use each other pretty frequently when there's like a problem set. We kind of have a recurring time where we just hop on a call and, sometimes it's even helping us get organized, to say like, what are some upcoming, moments and to debrief. But we also get a chance to work with different groups. So some classes may mix up the group, and that's also really cool to have like your study group as your base, but then you also have opportunities to work with different people in the class that you might not have gotten a chance to learn their strengths. And I think that helps, deepen our experience for us.
That's great. And so now, anything to elaborate on the cohort and the study group experience?
Yeah, exactly what Tom and Shanice said. It's kind of strange how it happens is the first week you kind of just get injected with 40 new friends. And it's like family. It's not even friends. It like goes beyond that. And then your study group just helps you prepare every single week, like for classes. But as a group, it's like like a gelling that I've never seen before. It's like everyone is fighting for the same goal, pushing for the same goal, and we all trying to just make sure that everyone is staying afloat. It's not like we're trying to let anyone down. And that's why the study groups are so great, is that even if someone's having a tough week or a tough month, we all working. So there's a lot of people that take on the lead, where they would say, okay, hey, you're having an issues, let's help you along the way. So there's a lot of friendships that are made, and to be honest, I think we would all consider them everyone family. I think that's where it's taken us already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I would add is that your study groups, you also have an opportunity to decide how and when you're going to meet. So my group, we just have like a informal time that, we all just had on the schedule. But that didn't mean that we had to all meet all the time. So if you're thinking about, is this a weekly commitment? It's not. I think it's all about how your group determines what's best for your group.
Yeah, that's great. Um, and so jumping a little into the curriculum. So the way it's broken down, students are taking their core courses in year one. That's essentially the foundations of business. And then electives in year two. So can you tell us a little bit about what the coursework is like? What do assignments look like as you go through some of these classes? So now we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I guess all the classes kind of build on each other, but they all pull different aspects in. So we first initially started with accounting, and then it somehow ended up into firms, and then firms takes it into global. So there's all these pairings that are done, and it like builds onto your base that you have. Tom will be able to tell you more about what happens in year two, but in year one, we get these classes, and immediately you're able to learn and apply into your work like immediately. That's how it's like it just all this knowledge is at your fingertips, and you're able to apply it right away. So that's a sense of how the classes do take off. But yeah, it is the opportunity where the core classes help you with building a really good foundation, so that you can definitely push into the second year.
Great. And so a question for all of you, what's been a favorite class or a faculty member so far? So Tom, we'll start with you.
Man, that's tough. As
Hard
I
to pick one.
No, it is. It is. I'll build on what happens in the second year, and then talk about the classes, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
In the second year, you pick electives, and so essentially the format is there's a morning class block and an afternoon class block, and that runs Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and so you get a choice of two in the morning and a choice of two in the afternoon. So you pick one, and it is a limited choice. That is, I mean, to be honest, it does not have the entire curriculum of the full campus because of the nature of the DC program. However, the administration and faculty do a great job of dividing up kind of the interest. So there's a kind of a more quant heavy finance or a more soft skills management, and those are paired together. So you're not choosing between two that you would maybe naturally both gravitate to. Now there are those choices, and those are tough. But what's great about it is because even though there's a limited choice of course title, the professors understand that, and so they give a lot of latitude to focus your study or your attention on what interests you the most. And so it almost makes up even more so for what appears on the surface to be a limitation, but it's actually a benefit in that, and then it gives flexibility in the curriculum. So now that I've filibustered to try to think of my favorite professor, I'll tell you, it's tough. There's so many great professors. Jeff Carr, for one, way back when, in the very beginning of the course, marketing class, and I was not particularly interested in marketing. That's not my background, not my thing. I wanted to build out my financial acumen because I've got some government experience in financial management, and so I wanted to build that side out. But it was a core course. He was so inspiring to me, and what was amazing is, and he's not the only one, totally open to get on a call and talk about careers. Get on, and he and not Lecter and a number of other professors, as I was making a career transition, offered their ear, their advice, their guidance. And so there's no chance I could pick one, because so many were not only influential in the classroom, but really impactful for me as I went from an active duty officer in the Coast Guard to through retirement, through job hunt, and finally a new career. And I think a lot of people in the program experience a transition like that, because we're all in this mid-career mode where we're trying to fill something and grow into a new role. So phenomenal experience.
That's great. What about Shanice? Can you pick just one?
Well, I could pick one. I mean, the ones that Tom named are great too. For me, it was Professor Bartov of financial accounting, and it was because I was a little nervous about going into financial accounting. I do a more qualitative, job. I work in diversity and inclusion, and I haven't really taken math like that in a while. So I was a little, stepping in with a little fear in there. But I felt like Bartov knew, and the way that he paced the class was a lot of problem solving. It was a lot of turn to your partner, let's practice. We also had a TA that offered optional office hours. And so I felt really helped throughout. And I think that that's something I've noticed with all of the professors. They understand that we're also working full time while we're doing this. They also know that, what we're getting is condensed knowledge that they would teach over a whole semester. We kind of get in a weekend or a couple of weekends. And I felt like they were really, open and flexible with us to help make sure that we were really understanding. But I think Bartov, only because when I knew I was going into financial accounting, I was like, I'm not sure. But it turned out to be one of my favorite classes. And I've learned so much that even now I talk to our finance team, and I feel like I'm able to read our statements and just do better in my own career.
Yeah, it's great. And Sanel, what about you? A favorite class or faculty?
Yeah, I think as Tom said, Jeff Carr definitely changes your thinking completely, like how you function on a day-to-day basis. He wants you to question why things particularly happen. But also Professor Victor that we had, Victor with DEI, what he did in the beginning when we first showed up as a group of 40, there was a lot of walls, I guess. That first week, there was a lot of walls that were put up. And as soon as his class happened, it completely flipped the whole dynamic in the cohort, and everyone since that class has just been like so connected. So there's definitely a bigger plan that probably we don't know as students, but all those professors are somehow integrating us together and integrating us into NYU as well.
Yeah, that's great. And so, Tom, I'm gonna direct this one for you because you're in year 2. So as part of your core curriculum in year 1, students participate in a global study tour, a global immersion experience, as it's now termed. So can you tell us a little bit about your global study tour and, where did you go and what did you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Highlight of the experience so far. So towards the, I don't know, a third of the way, I'm sorry, 2/3 of the way, or maybe 3/4 of the way into your first year, you get the opportunity to go on a global studies tour or immersion tour. We went to Warsaw, which was not on my bucket list of places to go in the world, to be perfectly honest. But it was such an amazing experience. So and to piggyback on the discussion of the cohort, 35 of us or so, we have a smaller cohort, but 35 of us went to Warsaw, Poland, and we all showed up there. And the academics are, take what you've learned so far and apply them into a market. And so we looked at the Polish market, both from a kind of a geopolitical aspect within the EU. However, an emerging market within a growing tech sector, with a refugee crisis coming out of Ukraine, and with a business dynamic that is growing with leaps and bounds, but have a lot of old, I don't know, frictions that are still left over. So taking all of the knowledge and understanding and what we've done so far, and then applying it into this economy. We met with everyone from a panel of entrepreneurs to the CEO of Orange, the major telecom of most of Europe, and have unfettered access to ask questions, to dig deeper. And then the program kind of culminates in an assignment where you look into that economy and say, where could I build a business? Where could I create value, right? So it's not just building a business, creating value for me. Where can I create value for the economic sector that I'm looking at? And that was all amazing, phenomenal, educational, brilliant. But again, I go back to the cohort. You build this experience together, and you have a memory that will last, a lifetime. So to share that experience with this group of people that you're kind of thrown into the mixer together, and by that point you built relationships, you built friendships, and now you get to go and capitalize on a brand new experience. Absolutely phenomenal. And I'm very excited because we are the first year that gets the opportunity to do a second global studies tour. We get to join our colleagues in DC 25 to go to Buenos Aires here in a few short months. So it's coming up. It's gonna be phenomenal.
Yes, very exciting. That's something, it's definitely incredible to be able to add that second year. So many people elect to go on the global study tour in year 2. And Shanice and Sanel, I'm sure you're both looking forward to your first experience, and it'll be an incredible one for sure. Great. So a question we get fairly often is, how can I add this in? I already have a demanding career. I'm already juggling obligations at home. So understanding the time commitment and how you're able to add in a rigorous academic program. So can you speak about, how any suggestions on balancing that professional and personal lives while completing an executive MBA program? Perhaps the time spent outside of the classroom doing executive MBA coursework. So Sanel, we'll kick it off to you.
Yeah, I think everyone has the same stances, that everyone has this full-time job, which we all at this level where it's really high, there's a lot of demand and we need to figure a way. But I think the way the course is set up is you figure it out as time goes along, you figure out what works for you. And if you just need to get into a routine. As soon as you get into the routine, there's some pre-readings that you need to do ahead of schedule. Before classes, you do those, and then professors are pretty lenient on the time that they give to complete a project. So it's not like the day class is over, project is due right away. They do give you sufficient amount of time to actually spend and do well on that project. So I think the way I prep and get ready is that you just set a specific amount of time. It could be even 30 minutes to 2 hours every single day, just making sure that, hey, you're getting the components completed, making a list and just going through that. I think that's a better way than waiting till the last week of class and just trying to cram everything. I know a couple of people that do that, and they find out very quickly that that's not the way to move forward. So there has been a switch. Yeah, just putting those half an hour to 2 hours, just putting those in means can get you quite a bit further than you actually think.
Great. And Shanice, what would you say about the time management and how to balance?
Yeah, I think I was one of those people in the first month who waited to the last minute, and I was able to skate by, but then it's not something you want to continue. So what I actually do is every Sunday, I block off time. So my Sundays are kind of my work days, or if it's that Saturday morning, that Sunday morning when everyone's quiet and I can have time to myself. I would say, about 5 or 10 hours a week. And it also depends. Like some classes, sometimes you can be taking a class that is more about reading. And so it's, spending more time skimming through, where you might have more quant classes that have problem sets. So I find that during the problem sets, the professor will let you know if you can work with other people. And that's where like my study group also comes in. So like having that recurring time helps us, like, try a problem set before, and then we can ask each other questions like when we meet. And so those are some ways that I would suggest. I would also say go back to, the things we used to do in college. When you get a syllabus, write out all of your deadlines and make that calendar so that you can also budget your time, because, we are professionals. We also, have lives. I work in a very social industry. And so it's important for me to be at the happy hours. And so I have to make sure that I'm spending time doing the work things, the social things, but also giving, what we need to this program. And I think that that's helped me.
Tom, what about you?
Yeah, so again, I agree with all of the above. I would say some pre-planning is critical, but also capturing those few moments that kind of pop up. So I've also had months where from the one weekend to the next, 3 weeks of it is booked solid with work and family and regular life. And so I have had the experience to cram. I've also had the experience where I've looked at and said, hey, the couple weeks upcoming to the next class weekend are going to be crazy. So I'm going to do this stuff early. So it does take it. There's some discipline there. What I have found though is the month or so between the class weekends enables me to find the time, both planned and impromptu, where a program that was every other weekend just would not allow me, based on my own personal schedule, would not allow me to do. So when I was looking at different programs, I quickly realized that if I was going to school every other weekend, there are often times that I'm on the road for 2 weeks at a time, whether it's international travel or up to our headquarters or whatever, that would not work for my schedule. And so the month to month, 3 days, I can carve that out for class time, but I can also carve out time. Sometimes it's on the plane, sometimes it's at night or in the as I said before, in the mornings when I have two teenagers, so they're sleeping till the crack of noon. So I can carve out some time where I'm not missing out on those important moments, because the last thing I think any of us want as adult learners is to push out the other priorities in life, whether it's work or family, or sleep or whatever. But I have found that this schedule allows me to balance what I need to get the work done.
Yeah, and if I could just add one thing, is I would say like the cohort does so well to keep everyone informed. We have a group chat, and we basically someone has put together a whole list of, hey, these are the deadlines, and a week before someone would say, hey, exam due, start prepping. And then 3 days later, hey, everyone, make sure it's set. And then last day, everyone, make sure everyone's working on it. So like we keep everyone updated on what's going on, even if an email comes up or there's like a survey that needs to be completed today. Something like that comes up, that we get together as a group, and it's just fantastic how everyone's able to help you, even though you may have all these things in the background that take priority. You do have the cohort that just pushes you along to get things completed and make sure you staying on track too. So that's something that's gigantic, which I feel with our cohort.
Yeah, a big thank you gift to the ones that give you the heads up that a test is coming or assignments too. And it's always incredible to hear what people are able to take on and do so successfully, having such busy schedules. I'm always very impressed. So, people are joining the Executive MBA program not just for the academics and rounding out their skill set, but it also has career implications. So, how has the Executive MBA program benefited you, either professionally or personally? Shanice, we'll kick off with you this time.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely grown my executive presence, leading diversity work at my company. I think I get a lot of trust, and it's great when I can link it to now the marketing team, because I took a class with Jeff Carr. I can understand their constraints, or maybe I'm talking with finance and I can read, the numbers even better. So I think in a lot of ways, I've found my skill set has grown in my business acumen, and even my confidence in just like walking up to ask those questions or know what are the questions to ask. So I think for me, it's grown in that way. I think also because it is a monthly program, and it's like a Friday, a lot of times for us, that's a little bit of downtime. So I don't feel like I miss too much of work. But then I come back with a new thought that I can ask. And so it's been cool to have school and also have professors as resources that I can then tap back into my regular company.
That's great. And Tom, what about you? How's the program benefited you, professionally and or personally?
Well, personally first, I'm a firm believer in kind of it's a cliche, but lifelong learning. And it's been phenomenal to just grapple with new ideas and try to understand and try to stretch. I took a valuations class recently. I'm not going to do corporate valuation as a full-time career, I promise everybody here on the call, but it enables me to understand what that means, to be able to look at reports from our finance team, because we're a startup. Valuation is very important to us. We're going through our Series B here soon, and so having the vocabulary and the acumen to be able to participate in these meetings, and just an understanding of where the business is has been incredible. Again, as I mentioned, I retired from active duty. I got a job. I have a feeling that some of that had to do with the fact that I not only span the public policy perspective, but also with the MBA on the resume. And then in the interim, I got promoted into a position that I'm doing more, leveraging more of the skills and ability. I'll just give you a concrete example. I was asked to be part of the negotiating team on our manufacturing facility. So leaning on my public policy program or experience on government, state infrastructure grants, but also working with a private entity and doing discounted cash flows on, some of the loan options that we have. I was picked for that because of this experience. I can only imagine that that is helping me, helping my career, even though it's not within the spectrum of being the VP of government relations, right? I'm primarily focused on that side of things. So I say all that to say, it's given me such a well-rounded ability to assist my company and assist my team in making strategic decisions and moving forward. So those benefits are, yet to be discovered, but I can already feel them.
That's incredible, and congrats on the success you've seen so far with the program too. So, Sanel, would love to hear about how the program's benefited you, either professionally or personally.
Yeah, so I think personally, it's been gigantic. Just the confidence that you get, just the relationships with the cohort, and even the professors, that the confidence that it gives you to be comfortable with who you are. That's something that has definitely the MBA program definitely helps you attain if that's something that you're still not comfortable with. And the skill set just to talk the language more than anything. Talk the language when your cohort is talking. You hear so many things. It's crazy how the cohort is put together. Is there's so many people from different backgrounds that help you not just think about your work, but also understand what different industries are doing, so that you can somehow integrate this into your work. That's something that we always just think about. What can the professor teach you? I think with the NYU cohort, it's like 50-50, maybe even 60 to the cohort, is that you're learning so much on the day-to-day, just talking to people about different operations that they've done, or different goals that they attain at their work. It's kind of crazy how much they're able to give you. Yeah, and I guess that right, we all looking into how this program can advance our career. So I think 95% of the cohort is either looking to advance, but also a lot of people want to pivot. They want to pivot into a different industry. So it does give you this complete all-round skill set that gives you the ability to pivot from one particular industry to something else, just so that you will feel comfortable, you enjoy doing it. And you that's what you get. You get a little bit of everything, and then the professors take it further along the way. But the cohort definitely gives you that skill set to help you push forward. And immediately with my work, I've seen immediate practice. We've had great results with just learning from the Jeff Carr class, marketing, how to promote different products, what you need to focus on. Yeah, so there's a lot that every single week, as Shani says, there's something that you can take back and be like, I need to do this as soon as I get back to work. And most of the time, it's very successful.
That's great. That's wonderful to hear. And thank you for kind of sharing all of that insight of how it has benefited you all. So for each of you, what has been the highlight of the program? Either I know we've talked about favorite classes and favorite faculty, but just perhaps a moment or memory that's been a highlight so far. Tom, we'll kick it off with you to start.
Okay. I would actually say among many, and there have been so many. I mean, everything from the conversations after class to insights. So I was just saying, like, these golden moments where you're in class, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to take that back on Monday morning, and in fact, Sunday afternoon, I'm writing an email to get it ready. But I would say the highlight was actually one of the first classes that I took, which was essentially, it was an ethics class. It was corporate responsibility. It was right at the beginning. It was right in the the class starts with a week-long session up in New York. And I was not particularly excited about an ethics class. I've been through ethics. We've done this. Like, I get it. We're checking the box, and then we're going to get into our real courses later. That was my thought process. Not the right one. I don't recommend it. But I say all that to say, we dove into the responsibility that you will have as a business leader on a local or global scale, and how much effect you can have on other people, whether it's your employees or your supply chain. And we looked at a case study of a company that decided to offshore their supply chain responsibility. And what does that mean? And how do you want to deal with that as a leader? This was in, day 4 of this program that I was questioning, do I really have the time, energy, need, or desire to do? And I was blown away by the responsibility and the opportunity that was laid in front of me to actually make a difference. I've told this story many, many, many times, particularly when people are, I'm at a dinner party or something, like, oh, I went to this school, I went to that school. What's your favorite part? This exact same question comes up, and I say that, and I've had more than one person, and one person who means a lot to me, say, I went through a top business school and we never talked about that, right? We never talked about the responsibility that you have to make the world better through a business program, right? Like that's what I went to public policy school for. So it was profound, and it set me on a journey through this whole program, and it was phenomenal.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. Shanice, yourself,
I would say for me, it was actually before I started the program. I was invited to the cruise. And the cool thing about the cruise is there was a DC cruise, and also there's a New York one. And, we were extended the invitation to try either or both. And the great thing about the cruise was you had different cohorts all together. And so when I was on the cruise, I got to meet some of my classmates before I got there. I actually went to the New York one since that was more local to me. And meeting the alumni and current students, they were so open to share information. They were, readily available. A lot of them we got, connected on LinkedIn, and, they check on me and how's your first semester? And I think that really speaks to the network and the fact that we do things like networking roulette, which once a month you get a new partner if you opt into it. Once a month you get a new partner that you can meet who could be an alum, or they've done the program, or they're currently in the program, and you learn about their background. So for me, the cruise was like this, it set the stage to say, use this time to network, use this time to share my brand, and learn about what I want to do, but also to find out what people are doing. And I think learning the gamut of things that people can do and the problems that we can solve, I think it really just changed my mindset and expanded my thinking. So the cruise was one of those experiences that I think really set the stage for me.
Yeah, it's such a fun event. So I'm happy to hear you were able to attend and got the opportunity to kind of meet some of the students in the New York program and the alumni as well. So that's great. Sanel, what about you? Is there a particular memory moment that stood out for you?
Yeah, I think if I had to put a finger on it, would be, so we normally have classes in DC, but we had one weekend that was at NYU. And to be honest, whenever that, just traveling there, and we had an accounting exam. So the first day, everyone was just stressed out. How are we going to get past this exam? And that night, we all got together. We all studied together. And right after the exam, everyone was smiling. It was just that vibe was so different. And then just spending time with the professors, just that relationships that we're able to build with the professors. I think that's something that has definitely been a highlight, is that the professors are not here just to teach you knowledge. I think it's almost like they want to be part of the cohort so bad. I think that's a gigantic highlight, is that the professors are not just a professor, they are a mentor. They want all of us to succeed. They will do anything in their power to make sure that we get the most out of NYU. And that's just a phenomenal thing that I have not seen with even my undergrad or anything like that.
That's wonderful. That's great to hear. The faculty, I've heard this from across the board and from all classes, just how engaged and active and willing to get together after classes and things like that. So that's great to hear that you guys are having that experience. Great. So I'm gonna also we had some questions come in from the survey form, so I'm gonna cover some of those. But for those also joining, feel free to use the Q&A feature to ask questions as well, and I will moderate those questions that come in. But to cover a question that's come in from the survey form, it's been many years since most of our candidates have been in an academic setting. So how did you prepare for the program and being back in school? Any suggestions for the audience to help them prepare to get back in this academic mindset? Tom, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think just mentally preparing means exercising your brain, your body, and also your schedule. And so what I did was decided when I decided to do the program, I started carving out time just to get myself used to that. And I would read. And it wouldn't matter what I was reading. It was phenomenal, by the way. And we all say we want to read more. Well, this was a forcing function to just get myself to read. And so it was fiction, it was nonfiction, it was business books, it was the newspaper. That really helped me. What I wanted to do, and I didn't, which was to really brush up on my quantitative skills. As I mentioned before, I don't have a deep math background. And so I thought I was going to also take some of that time and brush up on algebra and trig and you name it. I didn't do that. I ended up getting into a couple novels that were phenomenal, and so it goes. What I will say, however, is even in the very, very quant heavy classes, the professors also understand that everyone comes from a different background. Everyone comes from a different experience set. And the value of this program is that you can stretch yourself. And there's not the grade pressure that we all felt when we were 18, 19, 20 years old. And so the carving out the schedule and getting my family and myself prepared for it was incredibly helpful. But I mean, yes, practice math, but actually don't worry about it, because the program is flexible enough to bring you in and give you the skills that you need to succeed.
Yeah, that's great. And Shanice, now anything to elaborate? Yeah.
I would echo, I would say, that first week you have an intensive for a reason. So I wouldn't put as much pressure on like preparing yourself for mentally, because I felt like the first week was kind of that exercise. We were together for about 4 or 5 days. And, we could see like the first day, everyone was still on the high energy of networking. By the second day, we were kind of on information overload. But then you kind of like learn how to adjust. You learn, the classes are 3 hours, but there's 2 breaks in between, or there's a break in between. The lunches are pretty long. And so like, you learn kind of what's your social capacity. I think there's the academic side, but then there's also like, if you're an introvert like me, sometimes it's like you got to find some time to yourself. And I think you learn how to flow around your class schedule. To see like, is there a moment that you want to take a step, or if there's a certain day that you want to make sure you're bonding with your classmates, and other times that, you can still make sure to take care of your personal responsibilities or the things that you need for yourself.
Great. So now anything to elaborate?
Yeah, and I do agree. I think the first week just if your old rusty car, it's basically a jump start to your car. The first week helps you get going. Yeah, you definitely have the high in the beginning, and it drops pretty rapidly. But I think it's more on, you have to have a conversation with your family or whoever you're with, and just dedicate that you are gonna be spending a lot more time in front of a computer, in front of books, for the next 2-3 years, just focusing and building yourself up. I think that's the biggest thing, is that there is gonna be, your free time is not gonna be as wild as it is right now. It's gonna be a lot less, because you're gonna be taking a couple of hours. I think that's the main thing, is communication with your family, and making sure that you have that dedicated time for that Friday, Saturday, Sunday, every month, and the weekly or the daily study that you have to do.
Heather,
Yeah.
can I jump in on that just for a moment? Such a great point to talk to your family and be upfront and honest, but it also provides an opportunity, and here's where I want to go with it. I have two teenagers, as I mentioned. I would, and still do, my daughter and I will go to Panera on Saturday mornings, and she'll study chemistry and I will study evaluation. And then we'll kind of stop and take a break. This is maybe not the most effective study method, but I can blend these two things. Like, you can actually be creative about it, so long as your family it understands and expects and knows what you're doing. And so I think you can be flexible about it. Now, there are times that doesn't work. I actually need to cram and get in, and but when the schedule allows it, actually, it's really opened up a pretty cool relationship, to where we can go and have coffee and sit in silence, and then we talk a little bit, and then go back to it.
Yeah. The only
awesome.
build I would have is to also have that conversation professionally with your manager. I think, the Fridays, you can see the energy is different for people who don't unplug, and it's really important to be engaged in class. And so I think for me, that's been really beneficial, because like Thursday night, I might have a long Thursday night closing out for the week. But then that allows me to really be present on that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And so I would also, say, like, there's your family, and also there's, your work responsibilities for at least that weekend, to ensure that you can really unplug.
One other thing I want to add on the other side of that, though.
Yeah.
I've got a standing Friday vice president's meeting that I can't miss. It's just the nature of the work. I talk to the professors. They know that on Friday, the second half of the morning class, I'm not in the class, and I feel behind, and I don't like it. However, the classes are recorded, and so I can go back and watch that portion and catch myself up. Is it ideal? No. However, it's the flexibility that I can still be successful at work and not miss an important meeting. Now, could I miss the entire time? That would be challenging for me. But working with the professors, again, as was said earlier, they understand where we are in our lives. We're not full-time MBA students. We have families and careers and responsibilities. And so the flexibility of the program really allows that experience to be, full in when you're in there, but also I can take myself out if I need to for work. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So you've all mentioned, you either yourselves or have classmates that may be working through a career transition or pivot. How have you, or how have they navigated that? What have they been able to tap into to work through some of those transitions or pivots? And Tom, I believe you mentioned doing this specifically, so we'll start with you, if you wouldn't mind mentioning how you've kind of worked through that.
Yeah. So when I started the program, as I mentioned, I was on active duty. I had another 2 years orders, and I opted, not because of the program, but the program supported my decision to retire and transition. I leveraged the career services of NYU to kind of create a roadmap of what I was thinking about and what I wanted to do, and then leverage connections through that, not solely through NYU, but buoyed by NYU's career services. What's more importantly, I think, again, it goes back to this cohort, to be able to talk through, what do I want to do? Who do I want to do it with? What kind of problems do I want to solve? It's been such a powerful network, both externally to connect me with people, but also internally to say, like, you essentially you're going to be okay. You're gonna make it to the other side. And what's been really great is, in fact, I was able to bring on another one of my classmates onto my team, because they were going through a career transition, and I had an opening in our company, and it meshed incredibly well. So the network to help each other, both from a kind of mentoring or relationship building, to, hey, you're looking for this thing, I know somebody, to actual concrete connections. Really, really powerful, really great.
That's great. Shanice, Sanel, anything to elaborate?
I'm still, early in my journey. So
Yeah.
I think for me, it's been just great asking myself questions that I might not have thought about or asked. I think the career coaching has also been great because it asks you, do you want to be a pivot or do you want to be an advancer? If you do, what does that mean? What does that look like? And I think having that space to explore and find, what classes do I enjoy? Maybe there was things that I thought I would enjoy, that I didn't, or finding out I actually liked accounting. Could be different ways to like explore a bit more. And I think this program gives you that space. So if you don't have the answers, that's okay, because it also gives you that space to explore.
Yeah, we hear from so many that it is a very transformative experience. You may not have known what's even out there within your line of work before you meet somebody in a company or in a role, and you get to talking. And Tom, sounds like it worked out really well for your classmate in that scenario as well. So,
And I would just
um,
say, there's so many people in our class who have pivoted into new careers, who have advanced in their own businesses, who have started their own businesses. It's an incubator of success. It's just so impressive to see, and I really do think it provides people the courage to do something new, right? Like, that's really the secret sauce, is you've got this program and this group that enable you to go do something that you wouldn't do otherwise. And I really do think that's where we see so much success in our group.
great. And Sanel, did you have anything to add, or?
Yeah, one thing that I do want to say is that, like, I do feel that everyone has tons of questions, and especially about your career and what the next steps are. The great thing with NYU, they have career coaches. You can schedule calls. They in they're in New York, and then they actually come down to location to Washington DC to actually have conversations face to face. But you can do a lot of these activities on the computer too, on Zoom calls. But just asking those questions and having someone to talk through, almost, if you have doubts, it helps with just talking it out. And the coaches are very helpful, where they will help you and say, hey, why don't you try this, why don't you try this. It's just been fantastic. So the questioning is fine, but these resolutions that are mostly found with either the cohort or the professors or the coaches. There's so many resources available. It's most of the time pivoting is not that difficult when you have a good support team.
Yeah, that's wonderful to hear that you guys have found that, and having at your fingertips the classmates, the faculty, the resources, the career coaches. So that's great. We did have a question that came through about kind of the resources for career services, and that being based in DC and having access to some of the resources that are at NY in New York City. So thank you for speaking on that, as well as speaking on Shanice, you mentioned the opportunity to get to attend the boat cruise that takes place, and that's a great opportunity to meet and mingle with some of the New York students, but also some of your DC classmates that are also still based in New York, as well as alumni and things like that. And then so now mentioning the class weekend that takes place in New York, that's just even further opportunity to get to engage with those classes as well. So thanks for speaking about that. I wanna wrap up with one last question. What piece of advice, as I mentioned, we have people in the audience at various stages, from prospect first, just now starting to explore MBA programs, all the way to those that are admitted and considering enrolling, or even those that are already enrolled. So what piece of advice would you have for those that are considering and pursuing the executive MBA program at NYU Stern? So now let's kick it off with you.
Yeah, I would say, to be honest, go for it. What's the worst that's going to happen, right? That's something that at NYU professors, coaches have said, is you worried about things that are out of your control. Just do it. Make the change. It's okay. It's okay to be in a changing environment. So that's something advice that I would give, that I've taken from NYU is, doesn't matter if being a little bit under distress is fine. It's just helping you push further. So that's one piece of advice that I would give everyone that's applying to NYU. Just go for it. You learn so much that it's the friends that you make, the professor connections that you have is so tremendous that there's no value. That value is so difficult to get. It's kind of crazy, but yeah, just do it.
Tom, what about you?
Yeah, I would just pull a thread on that and say, like, be okay with being uncomfortable, right? Like, and it goes along with, like, just do it. Like, you've got it. You can make this thing happen, but also be okay with being uncomfortable. Like, take the classes that are hard but interesting, that are out of your experience, that are maybe even seen beyond your reach, right? Like, get yourself into that place of uncomfort, because that's where the real learning. And you may not score 100% on the final exam in accounting like the CPA did, right? That's fine. It actually doesn't matter, because your growth was probably, I would imagine, so much more than the person who has that skill. However, that person who's a CPA may be struggling in in another class that is talking about change management, or is talking about managing crises or whatever. And then the final thing I would say is, like, help each other out. So when you're comfortable and they're uncomfortable, you can actually, lend a life ring a little bit to assist, because they're going to do the same for you. And that's how you kind of all get through it.
Yeah, fantastic advice. And Shanice?
I would say for me, what helped me really evaluate and feel confident in my choice was like taking advantage of, things like this webinar. I remember hearing directly from the students. I also did a class visit. And I think, to me, those moments of stepping on a campus, for me, it was taking the train down and saying, can I see myself riding this Acela or riding the Amtrak down? Coming to campus, staying in the hotel. I think, take a moment to walk in those and reach out to the admissions team, because I found them to be incredibly gracious and like helping me, sit in a class. I sat in on a evaluations class as a applicant, and I heard the professor really break down some really strong business language that helped me feel really confident about walking into NYU. Talking with other students also helped me understand how they were balancing. And so I would say, like, take advantage of, the admissions team, the financial aid webinar, all of those resources are there. And I think it really helped me feel informed about my decision. And I would encourage you to do that.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much, Shanice. That's great advice. So I I want to close out just by saying thank you, panelists. You've been fantastic sharing your experience, getting a firsthand perspective. As you mentioned, it's invaluable for where everyone is in the process. So thank you so much for being making yourselves available and joining us. And for those that have attended, we hope that this has been helpful to learning more and that you can see yourselves as a student in the NYU Stern Executive MBA program in DC. So thanks for the questions that were submitted in advance, as well as those that came through. Appreciate the engagement. If you have questions about the application process or financial aid, any of that, you can feel free to reach out to our team. We're happy to share more information. We will have a webinar coming up in March that does cover the financial aid. It will have a member of the financial aid team. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, you can also call or email our office. We're happy to take any questions. So thank you again, panelists, for participating and for joining us, and thanks attendees for everyone that has joined. It's been a great evening, so we appreciate it. Thanks all.
Everybody.
Take care. Bye.